All right, today is a super exciting day. We just had the first load of our pasture fence delivered.
Oh, video.
You're gonna get a picture of this.
Ever since we first bought this place, we're like, wow, though probably the worst thing is that their fencing is just falling apart. There was baling twine, down wire. The wire was on the outside of the post from the pasture. So anyway, we were like looking forward to putting new fencing in here from the time we bought it, and it's finally being delivered today. So we got one load unloaded. Bob Harrop is going back to the yard, gonna load up again down there by Idaho Falls and bring up the second load. The kind of fence we're using is buck and rail fence, also known as jack fence or jackleg fence, but we just call it buck and rail. And we love it. We like the look of it. It looks kind of rustic and classic. Also, you don't have to dig a whole bunch of holes. Yeah, double thumbs up. It's super safe for the horses, and so it's like a win-win for us. So got a big pile of work behind me here, and that's only about half of it. So we're gonna start tearing down the old fence and then start just piecing her together. So we're pretty fired up. All right, we're getting things lined out. We got our second load coming up from Idaho Falls right now. Should be here in about 2 hours. So we're just putting together bucks and lining them out. So getting them laid out and ready to go. And as soon as that next load gets here, we'll put the little keeper gate sticks across the bottom, start putting these things up, putting rails on them. So for now, I'm gonna line out the bucks and then start lining out rails next to them so that we're ready to go when we get the rest of our stuff.
What's the dilemma?
Well, I'm not sure how to cut these without getting ran over by a bunch of logs. I know the first one will be fine.
It'll be more entertaining if you do get ran over.
Yeah. Okay, here's the deal.
Wait, we haven't finished our life insurance policy yet.
So, all right, guys. If I get ran over by logs, you have to at least subscribe to the channel. We only have to do that 6 more times today. That was fun. It's got to be a better way. All right. Well, yesterday we did a lot of the leg work. Alyssa put all our bucks together. We got them all drug out here to the back pasture, as well as like 150 rails drug out here to the back pasture. So today it's really going to start coming together, and we get to actually start putting the fence up. So we're pretty excited. There's going to be one gate in here, and we're going to get to her. A lot easier digging than our last place. All right, well, we're putting in one 8-foot gate into here just in case we need to bring this side by side or pick up in here. Usually the mules will be coming down the alley and in here. But we're gonna put an 8-foot gate right on this little stretch just in case we need to buzz in here for whatever reason. close. Right along now, our main problem is our drills are overheating. So we're putting in these pretty long screws, kind of like lags, and the DeWalt is overheated, and now we're using Porter cable, and it's already not doing good. We put in 2 screws, so we'll have to have a forced break here in just a minute.
Welcome. Okay, we can cut that. I'm gonna try again. Alright, so today we're gonna build the front pasture. We got the back pasture built. We've got 4 post holes to dig on each side of our gates that we're putting in, and other than that, there's no holes. So it goes together really fast. There's a little bit of legwork up front, but once you get that all done, you can put it up a huge section in a day. So we're gonna show you today how to put up buck and rail, or at least how we do it. We might not do it the right way, but this is how we've done it. It's worked in the past, so the first step we like to do is build our bucks. The place we buy them from has them pre-notched, which is really nice. I will say this time they're not notched as deep. Normally they're more like back here, and so we had to change our way of doing it a little bit, but not complaining because we don't have to go through and notch all these. We've heard there's a tool called like the Log Wizard. There's some other ways you can notch these yourself. You can build a jig. This video is not going to cover how to do that. We're just going to show you how to put them up once they're notched. So there are other YouTube videos on there that have how to notch out your bucks. But once you get a notch, you're going to take this diagonal notch here, not the straight notch on the sides, and you're going to put them together. You can see how well that fits just right down in there. We just use a battery powered impact driver. You can obviously get a electric one. We're going to go the simple route and use these construction legs. I will say they are not cheap. So if you're going this route, just expect to pay over $1 a piece for them. So this is what we're using. We have 6-inch, 7-inch, 8-inch. They're a construction leg bolt. It's just a hex head and a leg screw, I should say. And they're number 17s is what these are, so they're pretty heavy duty. You can use they have like a twisted nail spike that you can use as well if you don't have power. We're using the battery operated impact driver. We have a couple different brands. The DeWalt definitely has more power. You can use a plug in one of these, or like I said, a spike and a hammer. These things are not cheap. They cost over $1 a piece. They also make black log screws as well. I don't feel like they're quite as strong as these are, and they take a little more time to put in. There's also like a silver variety of a leg bolt or leg screw you can put in, but you have to drill pilot holes. We've gone that route before. It takes a lot longer. So these seem to be the absolute best option out there in our opinion. So this step is optional, but we've found that it helps the spread of your buck. We really like using them. So this is called a gate stick or stay, whatever you want to call it, and we just use the 6-inch leg screws in order to hold this on. And as far up buck as you want, it doesn't really matter. Like we have a spot we're going to be going over our irrigation pipe, so we'll probably end up moving this up quite a bit further to make room for that irrigation pipe. So this is going to be your ground where your buck's sitting on, but typically you want it down to where it's not going to be touching the ground and rotting, but it's going to be down towards the bottom so that it just keeps that buck from spreading. That's what a finished buck looks like. Now we only have about, 75 more to build for this field. So I put this log up to help hold it up here, but we have the luxury of starting our fence against this railroad tie. So just use an 8-inch leg screw just to hold that in here. It shouldn't go anywhere because it's gonna be pushing against this whole fence. We'll make sure we tie it down with the back rail, which we'll show you how to do. And then it's gonna only go one section. We're gonna have another T-post or another railroad tie, in for our gate. This section is not gonna run very far. Usually we run our gate sticks so they're all on one side of each buck or the other, but we flip this one around because when you go to sink a post in right here, we want it to be flush with the cross piece right here, and that gate stick ends up getting in the way. It sticks out further than right here, and so you can't button your post up right up against your buck.
So we're putting a tie in right here.
Yep,
for our gate.
We'll have two 8-foot gates together right here, a little double gate. So anyway, we want our tie to meet up right here, and this would have been in the way had we flipped it the other direction. So then we'll flip it back the way they should be on this next post, and then go from there. Alright, so we always start with the top rail. If you have a relatively flat section, you can actually lay these all out with the top rail on all of them, which is probably what we'll do down that run, and then the run on the back side, and this one down this other side. So, but since we are going to put in a post here, we only have this one section, so we'll just show you on this one section for right now. So there's a big end and a small end to your rails. So on the big end, we use an 8-inch leg screw and then a 7-inch on the smaller ends. And we're just going to run this straight into our buck or jack, whatever you want to call it. And another thing we like to do is if these rails have a big bow in them, we'll flip that so the bow is arcing up just over time as that sags. It won't belly out quite so bad. Now normally we would run these rails past just a little ways, but since we're putting a gate right here, a post right here for the gate, we want it to be flush with this jack. So the spacing on these rails, we did the bottom one first, but we did the top one very first. And we do the bottom one right against the gate stick. And then to find where we want this middle one, we just made a little jig. We found this block that happened to be the right measurements before I was measuring with my hands. So it's a little easier. So you can just hold that up in that little notch there, and that tells us where we need to put the big end of this. When you're first starting out, you'll have to eyeball the other end, but after that, you can just run them all, because now your small end's gonna sit on top. The next one, you just line the big end up with this measurement, run the small one on top, and that'll keep your fence straight all the way down. I have to say, I really wish we had enough room to put in an arena, because look at that dirt. That'd be like the most perfect natural arena dirt ever.
Just a quick tip, I think especially if you have mules, it's good to put your hinges facing opposite directions. So the bottom hinge definitely facing up so the gate can sit on it, but then do the top hinge facing down so the mule or horse or whatever you have can't lift the gate off both hinges and get out.
So one other thing to remember when you're building buck and rail is your inside rails. If you don't end up staggering them, then your whole fence will tip over. So the way we do it is we stagger one starting from up towards the buck downwards, and then do 3 straight, and then stagger the other one going from the ground up towards the next buck. So every 5 sections you have 2 diagonal rails, and if your terrain ends up going up or downhill, then you can diagonal those inside rails to where your fence won't tip over. So that's something to remember.
The cedar you missed out.
I can see her, she's jealous. Well, we're all finished with our fence. It took us 3 days and all day. It was very hot, but we're super pumped to be done with it. Get these guys back out in the field.
All right, we are super excited. We got all our fencing done. Took about 3 long, hard days, and we got our mules out on pasture. And it is such a relief to be able to pop one of these gates open and just know that they're safe. They're eating green grass. They're utilizing our irrigation. That's so fun to have. So it was a lot of hard work. Thankfully, I have a very strong wife, and we got her done. They're eating happily out in their pasture. So feels really good. We've been excited to do this project ever since we first looked at this place, before we even closed on it. We're like, well, it needs a new fence, and now it all has new fence. So pretty awesome, all done, and they're enjoying their pasture.
Well, it's been about a week since we got our fence done, and we just want to close out with kind of some takeaways from our fence building experience, as well as a cost breakdown for you guys in case you're looking to build a buck and rail fence on your own property. So our fence ended up being 1,250 feet worth of buck and rail, and we bought our buck sets and our rails from a company. They're out of Rigby, Idaho, and we had them delivered up here. But for materials, it ended up being $6,130 for the buck sets, the rails, the gate sticks. We have 3 8-foot gates that we bought from our local feed store, and those ended up being about $360 for all 3 of those gates. And then the hardware, we used those golden leg screws like we showed you, which are not cheap. We ended up needing quite a few of those, 350 7-inch screws, 350 8-inch screws, and we ended up getting right around 270 of the 6-inch leg screws as well. So in total, that was $1,100 just for the hardware. We bought that from a company called Jake's Supply out of Kalispell, Montana, and it had free shipping, so that was really nice. And then with delivery, the delivery itself, it was 2 loads coming from Rigby to up here, and that was $1,240 altogether. So a grand total of $8,830 for our project, which ends up being about $7.06 per foot. So that's kind of a cost breakdown. Now obviously if you went out and you cut your own bucks and your own rails and notched them, cost wise you'd be down a lot more. Time wise it'd take a lot more work. We actually contacted our local Forest Service office and asked them about like a post and pole permit for lodgepole pine. There are some lodgepole forests around here, but unfortunately they do not give out any permits. We would have had to use a firewood permit, and we wouldn't be able to cut any green standing trees on that permit. We would have had to find either dead standing trees or trees that were already fallen down. And for as much material as we needed, that just wasn't feasible for us to do that. So our only option for this fence was to purchase it through a company, and we had purchased through Harrop Post and Pole before out of Rigby, and they were great to work with, and so that's who we went with again. And their bucks are already pre-notched, which is really nice because that's a ton of time and effort to notch all those bucks. So overall this project took us 3 days. That was 3 kind of non-stop days. We did rent the skid steer. I didn't include that in our cost. It was right around, I think, $300 total to rent that for the day. We needed it to unload the first load of buck and rail, and then the second load he loaded where we could just pull it off of the chains like we saw. But we went ahead and pulled all of our posts, got our first load unloaded, and started putting some bucks together and laying out rails that first day. The second day we spent basically finishing up the whole back pasture, and then the third day we were able to finish the entire front pasture. So we did end up putting in 7 posts altogether, but we had those from tearing out the old fence, so that was no extra cost to us. So anyway, if you're thinking about building a buck and rail fence, if you like the look and that's something you might want to go with, or if you have ground that's really hard to dig, or maybe you have a ton of snow, hopefully this video helped you guys make a decision if you wanted to go with buck and rail or not, and it gives you a little bit of cost breakdown. Obviously it'll depend on where you're located and if you cut your own rails and bucks or go with a company that already has them pre-made for you. But we sure like it. We love the looks. It's really safe for the horses. If you don't have pasture and you just have a dry lot and your horses tend to eat wood, just be considerate of that. They will eat your rails and your bucks. At our old place they did that to some degree. Mostly they just ate the bark off of it, which isn't great for them. But here with the pasture, they leave it alone just fine. We're trying to grow our channel, and it would mean the world to us if you guys subscribed and liked it, and leave us a comment whether you like this fence. If you don't, if you have any suggestions, maybe you've built buck and rail, you've had problems with it that you've solved, or you have questions about it, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you guys and love to answer your questions. And thanks for staying tuned as we fix up our horse property.